What's the most important thing that you need before you start anything, any venture, any idea, anything that requires courage? Well, if you ask David Kadavy, he'll tell you it is the heart to start. Hey, my name is Kamga and I'm a creative. On this YouTube channel, I talk a lot about the books that I read and my life as an immigrant here in the US, as well as my journey as a creative who loves to write and make other creative ventures. If you've not subscribed, I highly recommend you do, because I make videos like this, book reviews, opinions, and discussions where I talk about my point of view about immigration and the things that I'm discovering because I'm now in the US, the books that I'm reading and how it's affecting my mindset and what I'm learning from them, as well as the content that I'm consuming that is helping me in my journey as a writer and a creative. Click that subscribe button and make sure you hit the notification bell, because the way the algorithm works, if you don't hit the notification bell, you would hardly know when I produce new videos. I make videos weekly now, so I am a YouTuber legit for now. I won this book as a giveaway, as a contest. It was The Heart to Start and The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. I love those books, both books. And on this video, I want to talk about this particular one. Spoiler alert, I'm going to be reading parts of the book and talking about sections of it that if you don't want, or if you haven't read it yet, you might want to first of all wait, read the book before you come back. The Heart to Start, Win the Inner War and Let Your Art Shine. I actually had a difficulty deciding whether to do a single book for this particular video, because I read The Heart to Start and A War of Art around the same period, and I feel like they're companion books. I think that was one of the perfect giveaways that I've ever gotten, because both books almost complement each other. In The Heart to Start, David Kadavy essentially talks about his journey to becoming a self-published author, a self-reliant author, to be able to actually make a living from something that he loved with all his heart, which was writing. And I listen to his podcast often, where he talks with other creatives and dissects their creative process and tries to document the journey and extract those nuggets that other people can use, people like me and you, if you're into the whole creative life journey. So for me, this video is not just about the book review, but about the whole mindset of starting, the mindset of documenting your journey and actually doing the things that you know you want to do but find it difficult to do. It almost reminds me of The Dip, where Seth Godin talks about when to quit and when to stick. So how do you even start before even getting to the point where you need to quit? When I started taking my YouTube channel seriously, this was one of the books that gave me the push that I needed. I talked about it in the video where I was actually explaining how it triggered conversations that I really needed to have with myself and put me in a position where I was forced to take action on the things that I've said. I owe David Kadavy a lot for actually letting me read this book. I wish I could buy a copy for actually anyone who really wants to start something, because there are people around me sometimes, and friends and people that I've met, who want to start a venture, the YouTube channel, podcast. Like almost everybody wants to start something. I'm sure that you want to start something right now and you don't know how you're going to do it. You don't know what are the steps to take. And that's exactly the mindset that David had when he was talking with James Altucher, who also happens to be a writer that I really enjoy and a mentor, digital mentor since 2011. He actually transcribes the conversation here. So it's a pretty long paragraph, and I'm just going to give you a mindset, like the idea of what was going on and then the answer that James Altucher gives. So in the fall of 2016, set into studio, locked into Skype, waiting for the call to connect, and he was basically interviewing his heroes for his podcast called Love Your Work. I'll put a link in the description, you can check it out. And he's talking about James here. So he started more than 20 companies. He's written 18 books, including the Wall Street Journal bestseller Choose Yourself, which I read and I loved. He hosts a top-ranked podcast called The James Altucher Show, and on which he has interviewed Coolio, Sir Richard Branson, and Sarah Blakely. He goes into each interview hoping to get a superpower from his guests. So he's trying to find out from James Altucher, like, how did you get to start all these things? How did you get to write all these books? How did you get to do all these businesses? And while he's talking to James, he's getting frustrated because James is not giving him an answer that actually makes sense. Because what he's doing with his podcast, which is something that I actually like to do with my own podcast that I'm working on, is try to get from people's experiences answers to questions that I have. All of us have different experiences, but we are almost the same in a sense that we almost want the same thing. We all want to be loved, we all want happiness, and we all want to know that we're going to do okay. Like for me, those are like basic three things. There are more, but I think almost every single person on earth has some desire for one of those three things. So he said, that's James, he said he simply wrote a short business plan and emailed it to people, and I asked him about finding the courage to share his embarrassing stories online. Did he ever worry what other people would think? He said he didn't. I asked him about whittling his possessions down to 15 things, throwing away even his college diploma. Did he ever wonder if he was going crazy? And James says, no, never. I wasn't finding what I was looking for, so I lost my patience. This is something I want to figure out about you, James, I interrupted. I think that what holds a lot of people back a lot of times is that they don't think big. And if they do start thinking big, they start to question themselves. So I'm wondering, is this an inherent thing with you, or was there any particular period of time where you didn't think that way and you started to? Now, James paused for a moment. I always thought I could do anything, he said. I was in second grade, writing books that I thought were going to be published and be bestsellers. I always thought that nothing stood in my way. It didn't look like he was going to get any of James's superpowers. If he always thought he could do anything, what could he teach someone like me? I still had another 45 minutes with him, so I resolved to dig deeper. I feel like a lot of people, he said. That's David. I have these little glimpses of ideas or dreams or fantasies in their heads, and then it just goes right over them. They don't realize that the thing that they just fantasize about is something that they could actually go ahead and do, which is something that I face. This channel is a typical example. I've had the idea for this channel for years. Back in Cameroon, I got a phone, I got a stand, I got everything I needed, but I kept waiting for something, and I didn't know what it was. And it's taken me books and videos and articles, and my wife telling me, yo, you should start this thing you've been talking to me about for past years. It's taken a lot. The reason why I love this book is because I understand where David is coming from. Like, almost everybody who wants to do some creative work has to be in this place where you know what you want to see in the world, but you also have to start, and you don't know what's the first step to take. James then pointed out something that should have been obvious. You follow a lot of ideas. You said you're from Omaha, Nebraska. Is that how I say Omaha? But now you're sitting in Colombia doing a podcast with me, and I'm 6,000 miles from you. You're doing this amazing science fiction thing right now. So let me ask you a question. Did you just suddenly quit your job and move from Omaha to Colombia? Like, what happened? And this is the cool part. This is the paragraph and the last line that actually stuck with me. James had a point. Here I was, grilling him about starting, but I had clearly made starts myself. I had started companies, written a best-selling book, started my podcast. Several weeks prior to our conversation, like James, I had also sold all my possessions and moved to South America. In the book, David now goes on to outline the path to knowing how to start. So the book is divided into 3 parts. You have the law of art, finding the fuel, and winning by beginning. So in the laws of art, there is art inside you. Art is self-actualization. Your ego fears your art. And this particular chapter reminded me a lot of resistance in the war of art, and that's why I feel like both books just go hand in hand, and it's difficult to separate this book from the war of art. I just find that they're the kinds of books that you read and you reread together, and they give you this compound idea of how to start and then how to go through with what you've started. Finding the fuel, the second part is curiosity first, which is go with your curiosity. The voice, go for the pump, that which pulls you through, which reminds me again of the dip. It's like almost all these books written by different people have the same basic idea, which is why I guess some people don't even bother reading, because it's like once you've read one book and you start applying a bunch of principles, you almost intuitively know the principles to continue applying and where to apply them. And the last part is winning by beginning, which is what it's all about. The only way to win if you start. Like, you lose 100% of all the goals you didn't start. So it's a 3-part book, very short, 121 pages. I read it in one night, I think. I like to be able to read books that I don't want to let down. Like, whenever I get a book and I feel like I need to drop this book, the same way I felt with The Art of War, I don't want that feeling. I think books, like movies, like content, the reason why I love podcasts, and particular podcasts I listen to, is because I know that every single time I go there, the conversations are going to actually pull me in, and I'll get lost in the conversation in a way that actually allows me to recuperate information and ideas and digest these things from other people and gain from their experiences. I love this book, and I recommend The How to Start to anybody. So I'm going to put a link so you can get it. If you're a writer, artist, filmmaker, musician, or entrepreneur, you'll find the inspiration and mindset to burst through fear, self-doubt, and procrastination to show your work to the world. And that is how you know you have the heart to start. So that's it for me with The Heart to Start by David Kadavy. Make sure you check out the book. I think if you're making anything of any sort, if you're creative, this is a great book for you to start, to get your juices flowing and to know how to begin. If you have like, okay, I want to write a book, how do I start writing a book? Because you're looking at this 300-page thing and like, where do I even start typing? You can walk through with this. If this guy was able to do it, you can do it, and I should be able to do it in a couple of months by essentially proving that it works. Make sure you check out the book and his podcast. I think it's an amazing podcast. I have a question for you. Have you read the book, and are you starting anything that feels difficult? And how have you been able to actually start the stuff that you thought initially were too difficult for you to start, and you actually were able to plow through? So let me know in the comment section what you think about starting things and the mindset around starting things, and if you have any book that has actually enabled you to start stuff. Don't forget to subscribe, click the notification button so that whenever I post a video, you'll be able to see it, and I'll see you on the next video. Remember, stay true to yourself and learn something, share something, and be happy, basically.